What does it mean to master the game of life? Like any game, it requires a fundamental understanding and application of the rules. But living in today's on-demand society is making this nearly impossible as our attention is increasingly being fought over and monetized by others. Will Moore's mission is to help you hit the reset button by providing a new set of game rules based on time-proven universal principles and modern science. To gamify your life by making it fun and addictive to replace your habits in the 5 core areas of your life proven to lead to true happiness. Ready, player one?
What's up, man? How are you,
What's
Joey?
up, dude? I'm good. How you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for coming on, man. Yeah, I was checking out all the stuff you're doing, and I mean, it's, you know, what you're kind of doing without, what I call it is it's kind of gamifying, you know, and I was reading about how, you know, you used to buy into the whole, you got to push really, really hard to push your body, and how that, you know, you realize that was wrong, and now you're going this way. So why don't you sort of tell us more about this journey that you've been on and how you kind of got here? Give us like a 3-minute version, and then what this minimal, we'll get into what this is that you're doing and how it's different and better than traditional training methods.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up playing soccer, hockey through college, and, you know, it was on the ice several days a week, and field, you know, whatever sport I was playing at the time, and going and trying to push my body as much as I possibly could. And then I got done with college. These teeth are real, by the way. So I got done with college.
Impressive.
Yeah, thanks. To realize I didn't want to play, you know, pro hockey and get my butt kicked, you know, for not much money, because I wasn't good enough to play in the NHL. And started being a trainer and realized, you know, let me just beat people up as hard as I can, you know, where they can't walk the next day, they can't sit down to go to the bathroom, they can't wash their hair. And I did that for years, because what I realized is I was doing that because I didn't really know what I was doing. Because in the end, the body needs to adapt, but you don't want the body to completely break down and adapt too fast. Like, we want it to slowly progress over time. And if we go at something too fast, you drive your car too fast, too hard, and you got a car that's, you know, a vintage car like your vehicle, you put these miles on it. And what happens is we're going to break down, and we're going to get these results too fast. And then eventually you're going to plateau, and you got to do more and more and more. And we start trying to add 100% to everything in life. And that's just not how math works. Like, you can't do 100% in working out and nutrition and sleep and family and love. You just can't do it. So I started doing this a couple of years ago. Kind of COVID hit, and I was like, let me focus on my sleep right now, working out less, and really thinking about my volume throughout the week, and, you know, the load, the systemic load on my body and my stress. And really, once I stopped working out as much and focused on the intent in my workouts and regulating my sleep patterns and making sure my nutrition was on point, but giving myself a little bit of grace here and there, that is the point that I realized I was kind of onto something. And that's when I came up with the idea to that book.
So, yeah, and I love that. And so, right, I feel like we live in a culture where it's like, right, you gotta, you know, like you're a wussy if you don't, as a guy, if you don't push, go, you know, bigger, better, stronger, you know. And it's like, I think what gets lost in that is, first of all, that's not realistic for really for anybody. Some people are able to, you know, there's a small percentage of people that are almost, what's the word I'm looking for? Sadistic? What is, like, it's like they almost enjoy the pain and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, like, those people end up getting put like up on a pedestal, but that's not really realistic for the majority of people. For real people that have real lives, that want to, you know, and you kind of alluded to it, like, have balance. And, you know, I call it these 5 core areas, you know, your relationships, your mindset, your physical health, but also your career and your finances, your emotional health. Like, if you want to have all that stuff, you can't just put everything into one thing and go as hard as you can. Like, you got to find that balance, right? And then what does that mean? It needs to be something that's sustainable, and that you're kind of like you said, you're putting yourself into the way, you're customizing it to you, to your own personal kind of way that you can sustain. Is that kind of the gist?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, like, people are always trying to, you know, get their life to fit into their training or whatever they're doing, when your training needs to fit into your life, and whatever that is. So if that's working out, if that's nutrition, yeah, you need to be able to fit it all into the pie or your rocket ship, behind you. See, that's what I did there. So you've got to be able to do that. So you can truly find that balance. And, when you're in a relationship, for example, with yourself, with other people, it's 100%, but sometimes people are getting 70%. Sometimes you're getting 30%, and you go back and forth. It's a give and take. So you need to do the same thing with all aspects of your life. Sometimes you're going to need to be pushing a little bit harder and work, and maybe not getting as much sleep. But then how can you get consistent sleep with that? If it's not as much, the consistent wake, consistent bedtime, so that you're regulating your endocrine system a little bit better. How can you focus on adding more positive behaviors in your life, or better foods when you're out of town? So that's kind of why I started approaching things like this. When I get called up by a movie studio to train a celebrity for 3 months, getting them ready for a movie, we always compare ourselves to those people, but they get me and somebody else like delivering their food every single day, and they're doing that for 3 months. So they're trying to stay completely on point, and they're getting paid $10 million for that. So of course they can look like that in a few months. Of course they're able to do that. So we just can't,
Right. And I'm really glad you said that. Let's just pause there for a second and talk about, because I kind of said it earlier, like we put these people up on a pedestal but really the people we put on a pedestal are the ones I mentioned sadistic, but then you also have, people that it's not realistic to be that. And then we're all like, that's what and then we all kind of beat ourselves up and say, why can't I look like that? Why can't I do that? When it's like, no. And I liked what you said, where it's not about putting the training into your life versus, the opposite. And it's like, you need to figure out a way to make it work into your life versus trying to use willpower and just pushing through something that doesn't fit into your life and is uncomfortable. And then you're like, I can't be sustained. Because it's just like, I'm sure you've seen it because you do this for a living, but I talk to friends all the time when they're like, I talked to a friend the other day. He's like, I'm going on the Weight Watchers diet again. And he's like, I've lost 30 to 40 pounds the first 2 times. Now, my 3rd time, he's like, and I'm like, I hate to break it to you, but we're going to have the same conversation next year, because you're using willpower to lose weight, and you're depriving yourself of stuff versus like changing, kind of fitting this new way of eating and exercising into your life. Like you're not developing the right habits. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and when we're talking about diet, I would say that you need to date your diet. For example, for your friend, for example, talk about Weight Watchers, and Weight Watchers is a great tool, for example. But if you can't stay on that for an extended period of time, if you can't date that, if you can't love your diet and you can't stay on that for months and years on end, then it's probably not for you. Adherence is the biggest key towards people losing weight or adding muscle tissue or being consistent. And consistency over intensity wins every time. Once you have that consistency, we can throw in the intensity, but the intensity often scares people. So they cut out these, major food groups, often, or these things that they love. And then all of a sudden they have hyperphagia, which happens a lot of times in bodybuilders, where they, go 12 to 16 weeks on a cut. And then all of a sudden you see them just pigging out on pancakes and everything else. Like literally they can't stop. So that's what often happens with people when they go on these, I wouldn't say Weight Watchers extreme diet, but it's extreme for that individual, because context is king. You always got to look at that. And for the most people, it's kind of, tracking calories and macros, which Weight Watchers is kind of doing with the point system, just makes it a little bit more of a game, but at the same time, for that person, obviously it's not working for them. And he's just yo-yoing back and forth, where you would be slower. You want to lose about 1% of your body weight per week if you can. And that's a much more sustainable way to do it.
Yeah. And I like that you kind of threw in, and so let's talk real quickly, this game. So, gamification to me, it's about reducing the friction. It's coming up with ways that, you're having fun, enjoying, whether it's points, rewards, these types of things. And yes, Weight Watchers does it. But when I so I was actually, I wanted to understand more, because I didn't actually know they were doing all that stuff. But then when I got into it more with him, it goes to what you said. The reason that it's not work, like you can have points and rewards and all that stuff, but if you're still at the core of it, you're relying on willpower, like something that's not aligned with like who you are and what you are like. This is like the habits that you feel like you can develop and get into a rhythm with, versus being like, okay, I really, really, really want to eat that, but I'm going to stick to this diet no matter what, because I told myself I will, versus, I'm going to slowly work myself into the habit of eating this other thing first. And I think the reason I like your whole concept is, to me, one of the best ways to reduce friction and to gamify things is to start small and to start simple. And people just, again, we live in the society, I think, where it's like we see that person, that celebrity up there, right, on the pedestal, and we go, I need that like tomorrow, right? And New Year's resolutions come along on January, and everybody goes to the gym, and then they're walking around like T-Rexes for 2 days because they overdid it, and they're like, I can't do that again, right? And so it's this. Tell us more about like your method of just simplifying it and really this minimal.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, look, I always say this, just the person's going to be different. But so for the individual like myself, somebody might see me like, oh my God, I can't work out as much as you. Great. You shouldn't. I've been doing this pretty much for a living ever, well, since college. I've been working out 18 years old all the way until I'm, 40 next week. So here's the thing, that for me, I need more volume. I need more load to keep seeing results. For somebody that hasn't worked out since high school football in 30 years, or somebody that has never worked out before, they can get great results just working out 1 or 2 days a week, just resistance training and moving more. So their body's going to adapt and change because it's a new stimuli. You don't need to work out 5-7 days a week and do 20 sets of chest and back and completely kill yourself and completely, if you're having a bunch of crap food, let's say you're 300 pounds and you're overweight, and people are like, oh, we need to maybe not have artificial sweeteners because they're bad for the gut and whatever, which research on that is kind of goes back and forth. But what makes the most sense for you is to actually lose the fat first for your overall health. So what's going to be better for your gut health is losing that extra adipose tissue. So what you could do is maybe still have your diet soda and then cut some things out of your diet, but even better, add more fiber, add more protein, things that are going to satiate you more. So you're going to be more full. You're going to crave less of those foods. And then when you get down 50 or 100 pounds, then maybe we have the conversation about cutting out the soda. People, they think about their short-term wants, and they're not thinking about the long-term goals. And if those things align, you got a vacation coming up, you want to be absolutely shredded. But then again, your main goal is to have 20 pounds more of muscle, a year from now, whatever that may be, right? So then you're trying to completely diet down for a vacation for 6 weeks. Well, there's a cost to that. So you've had that 6 weeks loss of not being able to add muscle tissue because you're dieting down and you're starving yourself. I have the same thing happen with movie stars. I trained a movie star last week, and the guy hadn't eaten for 3 days. I'm like, oh my God, because he had a photo shoot coming up. So we had to go through all of that. I was telling him to have carbs the night before to fill his muscle cells up, and like he had never heard that before. I was like, oh my God, okay. So like, it's crazy. And if you have to hop on here, you'd be fine to talk about it. But it's really interesting that what we see and what we try to do so fast for just these short-term results. And I had a female come in the gym. I run a gym downtown Chicago called Modes. I've got 10 trainers below me. A new member came up. She's like, hey, I've never worked out before. So, I need to lose this and do this and do this. And I need to be slim, thick. I think that was her words. I'm like, okay, cool. I said, how much time do you have? Yeah. She's like, how much time do you have? Or how much time do you have? He goes, 3 weeks. I said, okay, that's not going to happen. She's like, what? I'm like, how long did it take you to look like this, to add this fat? 3 years, 30 years, and you want it off in 3 weeks? We don't have the concept of reality with some of those things. So slow makes so much more sense. Yeah. So just start working out 1 day a week, Yeah. Exactly.
You got to let that law of compounding kick in. That to me is one of the most overlooked universal principle laws that people just forget exists, but it's like you can't cheat the system. You can for a short period of time, just like, and again, this is what our society promotes. Remember that show, I used to watch that, The Biggest Loser, right? Mm-hmm. Exactly what you just said was what they were doing. And that's what people were like, whoa, and within a month, people were dropping 200 pounds, crazy stuff, but it was unsustainable. Yep. It was all super quick, and they were doing crazy workouts and starving themselves or whatever they're doing. But then that wasn't a habit, right? And then, so then they would always come back, and most of them gained a lot of the weight back. Some did keep it off, but the only ones, and if you remember, that kept it off were the ones who had actually taken the tips that they were given and stuck to it and changed their lifestyle and made it a way to work for them, right?
Yeah. Most of those people did put it back on. Biggest Loser study kind of almost shut down that show, really, for the most part, because it was so hard. And yes, you put people into a weight loss camp. That's basically what they were, and you're there for months on end, and that's the only thing you have to think about. So these people were athletes. That's what was happening. You know, they were in preseason. They were training. So of course, all of the stressors, everything that's gone, and you're only focusing on that, and you know, you're playing a game to lose weight. Of course, you're going to lose weight because you're in that environment. But once you take yourself out of that environment, you go into your old environment with those bad behaviors that you haven't changed. That's the thing. Like your buddy with Weight Watchers, he's trying to do the same behaviors and not change them. And that's not going to happen. It's not going to work. You know, I mean, maybe it will, but he's probably going to approach it the same exact way.
It's interesting. I didn't know about that follow-up study, but that doesn't surprise me. It's just like The Bachelor, right? I mean, it's like you're thrown into this unrealistic, like where every date is perfect and you're being flown around in these romantic, and then it's like, then you get in the real world, it's like, ooh, you're not as awesome as I, right? I mean, it's the same concept. It's like, it's not reality. You're not actually, you know, slowly taking these methods. And I like what you were saying earlier, just getting back to the whole, like, filling yourself up with good stuff versus trying to like deprive yourself of the other stuff, at least at first, because that's a nice little life hack. That's a nice little cheat right there, where you're kind of tricking your brain, because what's happening is you're starting to introduce yourself to the foods that you want to be eating. Maybe you're still eating the other stuff, but even if you're, you know, but by eating these other things, you're being more full, but you're like actually developing a taste for them. And then the idea would be to slowly but surely, correct me if I'm wrong, is this how you do it, to start eliminating these other things versus just being like, no more potato chips, no more, right? But like, okay, well, how about next time you have half a bag of potato chips and then you have this other, you know, mixed nuts that you've been introducing into your diet?
Yeah, so for the most part, you're on point. So this is from a study, University of Michigan, where they had people eating the standard American diet. And they fed them more whole foods, fruits, vegetables. I think some lean cuts of protein were in there. And they weren't regimented at all. They said, here's the standard American diet, but also you can eat all these highly processed foods, chips, sodas, donuts, all that sort of stuff. But I want you to have these whole foods too. So the group that just by eating the whole foods and adding them and still having the cookies, chips, sodas, whatever, ate 500 less calories per day. That equates to 3,500 calories less per week. Wow. So why is that? So you can look at the micronutrient density, your vitamins or minerals, how you're feeling. They're more filling, they're more nutrient dense. Some of them will be calorie dense, but also satiating as well. Like if you're eating protein, you're having your fiber, it's filling you up. It's helping your gut microbiome. Your immune system is there. It's telling you you're full. So you start adding these good behaviors, and naturally they just didn't as much of the other things. So I think sometimes when you put like a limit on it, like I only a half a bag of chips, and then you see there's half a bag left, I think sometimes that might do people a disservice because it's hard for them to do. But yes, they're having less of those things. So eventually you start thinking, oh, wow, that apple is actually sweet for me now. I don't need to have that ice cream because that can be my dessert. So then you're like, oh, so then you need to have that positive feedback loop. You need to stop and think about it, because you can't just gloss over it. You need to stop, think about it, get that dopamine response and hit it, because dopamine is a motivation pathway as well as a reward pathway. So stop and think, well, wow, I have this apple. I'm actually full right now. I don't need that ice cream that I normally have because I feel better. I'm sleeping better. I look better. I need to have this apple. Let me have this apple. Stop. Feedback. And eventually you don't even need to go buy the ice cream.
That's it. Right. And that's right. It's like you're slowly waning yourself off by sort of, you know, right. Your brain gets to the point where whenever what you just said reminded me of this scene from Scrooged with Bill Murray. I know it's kind of a random reference. Have you seen that movie?
Yes,
At the end, when he like realizes the error of his ways, and I mean, it's the same story in all the Scrooges, but it's my favorite version. But he like kind of goes overboard, and he's like, I get it now. I get it. Like, I understand why people want to be good and want to love and have good relationships. He's like, you get greedy for it. He's like, you want more of it. And what you just said just reminded me of that, because it's like, it's true. Like you start introducing these other foods, and then you start to see your body changing and your energy levels going up, and you get greedy. You're like, I want more of that. Right. And then that's when the trigger that I've seen, even just whenever I try to introduce a habit, it's like, it's really hard to stick to a habit when you don't see any results, right? And so that's why I think what you're talking about and what I preach, which is like doing things very small and almost introducing to where it almost doesn't even seem like you're doing anything. But then law of compounding kicks in, and all of a sudden your brain starts going, okay, this isn't so bad. And then you start seeing results. And that's when that feedback loop goes, oh yeah, that's when it kicks in. I call it the success loop, where it's like, okay, yeah, we did this. Ooh, we had a little bit of the feedback and good things happen. Ooh, I feel better. Ooh, I want to do that again. And then you get into that. And then that at a certain point, the idea is, right, you go for the apple, and you don't even buy the ice cream. Because you're like, this tastes just as awesome.
Yeah, and people are just so concerned, you know, and in the end, calories are going to matter. Like calories determine your weight, macronutrients determine your look, carbs, proteins, fat, and micronutrients will determine how you feel. So by adding more micronutrients, by adding more satiating foods, just naturally without having to think about it and stress so much about it, that naturally is just going to have you not only feeling better, it's going to have you feeling better first, and then looking better. Like we need to create all these positive pathways, and there's neural pathways, whether it's neuromuscular or to the brain as well. So by us doing so and adding these just positive behaviors, it's not like you're being punished all the time, because that's what people always say when they're on a diet or they're working out or they're whatever, like they're punishing. I mean, even look at the runner's term, like our sport is your sport's punishment. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's always in there.
Right.
They're always
it's glorified in our society.
Right.
For sure.
So, I mean, there's times when, yes, we need to fail. There's some failure. That's some good stuff, like lifting weight to the point of failure. That's a good thing. Like falling down and getting back up and being more resilient. That's a good thing. Leaning into stressors, you know, that helps with neuroplasticity in your brain. That's a good thing. But there's some things that we need to do that are easy in life, which is like, it is easier just to grab some, you know, better food or some better options. I'm going to do one apple today. I mean, literally just do that, like that simple. And then start moving on. I'm going to walk 10 minutes after my meal today. And then I'm going to walk 10 minutes after the next meal. And then all of a sudden you walked 10 minutes, you know, every single day, and you have 30 minutes of movement that you didn't have. That helps digestion. It helps nutrient absorption. This is very simple to do, because everybody thinks I need to have that hour. I need to have 45 minutes to get a hard workout in. But nobody said that had to be a continuous effort. Why can't you split that up? So I call those burst workouts or exercise snacking. Why can't you split those things up in those continuous bouts of effort? So I started doing this with clients, like during COVID, when I started training them online. Like, you know, you've only got 10 minutes between calls and you're being a babysitter / a school teacher. Go and do, you know, 5 sets of bicep curls in 10 minutes in your garage or in the basement. Okay, you got that. An hour later, go for a 10-minute walk. Okay, you got that. After, you know, then do 5 sets of chest. Like you're compounding this throughout the day, and all of a sudden your 3 or 4 short little burst workouts where you don't have to shower afterwards. You got a nice pump in, you got a good workout, and you know that volume load throughout the week is adding up, and it didn't seem so strenuous.
Oh man, I love that. That's exactly, you know, you get it. And this is behavioral science at work here, people. Like this has been proven. Like these studies have been done. Like this is how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you do little small chunks, because you're reducing the friction to where it's like, oh, I got to go to the gym for 2 hours, and it's like, then I got to get in the car. But no, you're at home, and there's different ways you're reducing the friction. One thing even you said that I love, that I talk about all the time, that I think is actually the best way to introduce a new habit is, you didn't use the word, but I don't call it, it's habit stacking is a term.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
So it's basically, for people that don't know what that is, you're already doing something, and then you tack on something onto that you want to do. So you're doing X, which is something you're already doing, and then you tack on Y, which is something that you need to be doing, you know, you should be doing, whatever you want to call it, right? So like you were saying, after lunch, you go for a 10-minute walk. Like if you can like put it, and the way I do it, just to help people at home, is, you know, you can actually write out your routine that you have for the week. And I tell people to do it Monday through Friday, because weekends are always all over the place for most people. But Monday through Friday, for the most part, I feel like people have a pretty similar schedule in terms of how they're working, what they're doing. And so I like to tell people to actually write out your schedule and what you're doing. And I say, put the neutral habits in black, put the bad ones in red, and then put the good ones in green. And it's all color coded right there, and you can literally see. And like a neutral habit, I would consider just eating lunch just on its own without talking about what you're eating. That's a black neutral habit. Everybody's doing that, right? But then you can habit stack a green one onto there, right? And you go, okay, 15-minute walk after I eat. And at first you're going to be like, I don't really want to. But again, okay, so then how do you reduce the friction even more? Maybe you put on your gym clothes before you, or you put on your walking clothes before you even eat, right? You set your alarm for 10 minutes, like after, you know, you're going to eat, and it reminds you, or, you know, or maybe you go for a 5-minute walk instead of a 15-minute walk. You just sort of start reducing until you find your little sweet spot where you're like, I can do this. This isn't a big deal. And the key though, is that's different for everybody, right? So like one guy, 15 minutes would be like nothing. Whereas another guy would be like, all right, well, I'd rather do a 3-minute walk. It's like, okay, whatever you need to start with. Right.
Yeah. I had this exact same conversation when I was in LA. It was going on Fox, and the sound guy was a very large individual, and he said he's really close to, you know, premature heart failure. It's like, I just need to stop. I'm like, well, stop what? You know, like, stop living? Like, you need to stop trying? And he's like, well, I walk and I get out of breath. I said, okay, how long do you walk? He's like, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes. I said, okay, so your walking is now 2 minutes at a time. And he stopped, and he never thought about this. And I said, we need to get to that point where we're almost just out of breath, and then we'll slowly do that. And it's 2 minutes and 10 seconds, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Maybe you do 10 squats. Like, you're a big boy, 400 pounds, you do 1 squat. Like, that's a lot of load on your legs.
Right.
But you can do that, but you're walking around, you're miking people up all day long. And I said, it's not the point of no return. If that's the case, you might as well just lay on your deathbed right now. But you're still here. You're not with the breathing tube. So you have the opportunity to change your life. And there was a doctor next to me that was going on a show too. And I just see him like head nodding. actually a friend of mine. And I'm like, what do you want to do? You just want to sit here and complain about this? Or do you want to change yourself? Or do you want to die? And he's like, nobody's ever spoken to him like that. So I hope it sunk in with him. And I didn't have an extra book with me, otherwise I'd have given it to him. I mean, book sale's nice, right? But, you know, I really hope he did. And he's like, oh, I don't like reading. I'm like, great, I got an Audible book. You know what I mean? So it's like, everybody wants to like have these excuses all the time. But once you're filling in those excuses with, you know, tangible behaviors and habits that they can accomplish, then you have no rebuttal anymore. So I really hope that conversation that helped that guy save his own life. Because we can't save someone else's life unless we're a surgeon, right? We can't save someone else's life. You need to be able to save your own and put these positive behaviors and habits into your life. Because if you don't, you are going to die faster, and you're going to die a slow death. It's not all of a sudden you're just going to fall asleep and peacefully go. No, like you're going to get neuropathy. Your limbs are going to go. You're going to ache every single day for the last 20 years of your life. Do you really want to do that? Because you've been living in pain. And that really drives me crazy. And I'm passionate about it when I talk to somebody like that, because I know that they can do something. I know it's harder for lots of people. And my buddy Aaron Baker, who just wrote a book called Rebellious, he's a recovering quadriplegic. If anybody can complain, that guy, he now stands up and he can walk. Wow. At 17, 18 years old, he was riding motocross and cracked his neck. Said he would never walk again, like 1 in a million chance or something crazy, even like just like operate. He learned how to write with his other hand. He's signing his book like this. Like, he can't really open his other hand. You know, we stood up to take a picture together, and like I saw him on TV and stuff. That's how we met. And I just watching him stand up from a wheelchair, I was like, holy shit, what am I complaining about? And sometimes we need to be smacked in the face with that reality that some people have it much harder, and they push through that resiliency. But I did ask him, like, hey, I said, hey, dude, like, where do you think you would be if you didn't break your neck? He's like, I think I'd be dead. Because he was on that path, which is funny because he almost died from breaking his neck. Right. But he's now more alive than he would have been.
Yeah. Oh man. If I had $1 for every time I talked to somebody on this show that either themselves or had a story similar of somebody that they know or have worked with that had this kind of like rock bottom moment that just shifted their mindset. And I actually had a guest a couple weeks ago, and it was interesting. He actually is trying to help people to find, like, to produce, to actually manually produce that rock bottom or that life changing. And I thought that was an interesting concept, because it is true when you think about the fact that when the guy just said, I'd be dead, like, people are going in tunnel vision with the habits they have and the things that they're doing. And it's so hard to snap out of it. And really, it's got to be like this huge traumatic event for most of us to be like, whoa, what the heck is going on? Like, what is this path that I'm on, and where am I headed for that? And then you hear these great stories about this motivation and stuff. But for the rest of us, without that, it's like, okay, how do you do it? And so to me, honestly, man, I feel like everything you're saying, yeah, it comes down to these, and I actually call them golden gamified habits. And what I mean by that is, for every single person that's alive, they're going to have that, just like you talked about the guy that was miking people up for Fox. And for his gamified golden habit was, okay, the 1 squat or the 2 minutes of walking or whatever, because that's what he could do. And that's what maybe he enjoyed. I mean, I don't know enough about him. Maybe it wasn't walking. Maybe it was getting on a bike instead. But the point is, everybody has their own preferences. They have their own likes, dislikes, passions. Don't ignore that and just try to do something because you think you should. Like, use that stuff, right? For me, I love playing. I can play basketball for 2 hours straight, drenched in sweat, get the best workout, and not even feel like I did anything, because I'm having so much fun and I'm so into the competition. And everybody has something like that. And you need to find what that is, and then just start small with it, and just start. And those are the habits that, those golden gamified habits that you're like, okay, this is the one. And again, I think what's important to stress is, if it's too hard and you start to give up, that's when you go, okay, well, maybe we need to add another friction reducer here. Maybe 4 minutes is too long. How about we try 2 minutes, right? And just because then if you get to the point where you're barely doing anything, it's not, you're not challenging yourself. It's just a matter of getting yourself to keep doing it. And then it's kind of fake it till you make it. I've seen this a million times. Like habits don't care if they're good or bad, helping or hurting. And then what's going to happen is it's just going to eventually kick in, and you're like, I think you mentioned earlier, your neurons start firing together and wiring together, and all of a sudden it's like your brain's like, this is what we do. This is just who we are. We do 25 push-ups on our lunch break. Like, that's who we are. That's what we do. Like, we eat almonds for our midnight snack. That's who we are. That's what we do. Versus, oh man, those cookies, I really want those. But I'm right there with you. Like the biggest monster in this book is sleep, because people are like, oh, it's diet, it's exercise. No, it's actually sleep first. If you're not getting that consistent sleep, and I'm not saying people like, well, then once I say that, everybody's like, well, I can't get 9 hours of sleep. I didn't tell you to get 9 hours of sleep. I told you to get consistent sleep. Just right there, that's going to start regulating that endocrine system. So getting the sleep and then focusing on, how your day sets up your night, not your night sets up your day. When we don't think about that. So maybe you start there. Maybe it's not even working out. Maybe it's just regulating the sleep patterns, the circadian rhythm, turning the overhead lights off, wearing the blue light blocking glasses, using low level light, at the night, maybe looking at the horizon, all these things. So you're getting up in the morning and viewing the sun or bright light. That sets up the day, sets up the night sets up the day. So that right there can help you, because if you're looking at studies, people that get less consistent sleep are storing more fat. They're craving 30-40% more calories the next day because they didn't get that sleep. So there, you're not even doing anything with your diet, with your exercise, with cognition, anything, but naturally you're getting the benefit from all of that just from regulating the sleep patterns. That's why that's the biggest chapter in this entire book. So, I think people really get lost in that because they just think that, I've only got my 5 hours. Okay, well, let's think about how that 5 hours can be better. I love it. Yeah, I'm looking at a couple of these comments. Jules wrote, concentrate and focus on what you can do, not what you can't do. Right. I mean, that to me, that just sums up a big part of what we're talking about here. So let's talk about your book. So that your book is called The Minimum Method. When's it coming out?
It's got out December 27th, so it's ready to go. So it's gonna look backwards for everybody, but there you go. The Minimum Method, the least you can do to be a stronger, healthier, happier you.
Do you think Instagram can figure this out all right?
You think they could, because regular, when you flip it, and you record it, it goes back to normal. But
and on Zoom, correct me if I'm wrong, Zoom, it's right. Come on, Instagram, a $1 zillion company, get your shit together. Yeah, dude, this was awesome, man. I got a lot of great stuff. I love talking to people, whatever their specialty is, that get it right. Yours is more focused on the physical health stuff, but I mean, not just that, but that's kind of how it all started. And that's using this reducing the friction, making things smaller, adding versus subtracting until that addition becomes kind of your go-to. I love it. And this is behavioral science 101, people. This is how you do it. This guy's right. You got to listen to him. And this is how you're going to lose weight. This is how you're going to have better relationships. This is how you're going to develop a better mindset. Don't try to use your willpower and go balls to the wall and try to kill yourself and say, I got to do this, and I only have 3 weeks to do it, otherwise I'm a failure. And then beat yourself up and then go back to your old, 99% of people do it. Yeah. Do it this way. Buy the book. Check it out. And then we can find you on Joey Thurman Instagram, yeah? And your website is?
Joey Thurman Fit, all social channels, website, joeythurman.com.
Perfect. Oh, one last question. Well, you were talking about the celebrities. I get a little, I like a little
Sure.
celebrity action.
Sure.
Are you able to talk about any,
Yeah.
some of the ones that you've trained? Who you just said you're training one last week? Like,
Yeah.
give
So
me some details.
yes.
Juicy stuff.
So I trained Terrence Howard before season 2 of Empire. Trained Wumi
Nice.
Saku from Lovecraft Country. We Own the Night. She's in a movie that last weekend. Trained Matthew Postlethwaite from Peaky Blinders.
Oh yeah.
It's Chef Robert Irvine, Gail Kim, WWE diva Mickey James, WWE diva Lisa Marie Varon, celebrity chef Art Smith. Oh God, a bunch of local Chicago celebrities, CEOs. I'm sure there's people that I'm forgetting on there, but yeah, lots of people.
Dude, that's. I mean, so when you're doing this stuff, I mean, why don't you just tell people at home again? You said something earlier that kind of I thought was interesting, which is, you know, they have all this money, so they have somebody that can train them, right? Which reduces the friction because this is their training schedule and the person's going to show up whether they like it or not, right? They don't have a choice. And then also food, that chefs and stuff. How different is it for these celebrities how much easier, I guess I should say, and are there any tips that just the average viewer that's not a celebrity can take away from that and help them to maybe use some of these things that they're doing to help them?
Yeah, I mean, look, so one, they're having, you know, consistency. So they're working out several months on end and they're hitting it, you know, once, twice, sometimes 3 times a day. I'm not saying people need to do that, but they're consistent in their efforts. They're consistent in their food. They're consistent in their sleep, consistent learning their lines. So that is huge. So whether you want to say, I want to work out three times a week, you know, I tell people, like, why don't you say, I want to work out 12 times a month? So, you know, then that month you need to hit that in there, because if you've got a bad week, you miss something, you can make up for it the next week. So you're trying to hit that number there. That is huge. Meal prep is massive. If you can prep your meals, if you've got the means to either have a chef, which most people don't have, or to have those meal delivery services, that's actually pretty inexpensive nowadays. If you think about it, you're going out to a Chipotle or whatever, spending $15-20 on a burrito. Most of these meals are averaging $12 to $13 per meal. You know, you can do that. You can buy all these pre-made salad mixes now and go buy one of those rotisserie chickens, you know, if you're eating animal products, and cut that up, put that on the salad. You can do it. It can be okay to do so. And sometimes if you need more time and you normally, like, meal prepping takes too long for you, fine. Go and have your food, but make sure you find a good quick restaurant or something where you're having the same burrito bowl every single day. If it's, we're just going the Chipotle analogy here, right? It's just chicken and rice and lettuce, good to go, right? Real clean. You'd be fine. So just that consistency throughout time is really going to matter. And then from there, you don't need to be worried about tracking calories and things. I mean, it makes sense if you can track the calories and macros, you know exactly what you're putting into your body. But if you're getting those meals and things, they're already measured out for you. They say that the calories and macros on there, and you can start tracking that. So that's probably the easiest thing, is just being consistent, you know, in all of your efforts, whether it's, you know, sleep, nutrition, mindset, love, all of that. That's going to help tremendously. And I was showing up these people's places, and yes, you know, the movie studio often was paying for me, you know, so it is nice for them to have that. And a lot of people can't figure that out. You don't have to have a trainer. It's nice to have one.
Yeah.
But yeah, stay consistent.
Consistency. The 2 main things I got from that were, sorry to interrupt you,
you're good.
were consistency and meal prep, right? And because they're getting that consistency because they're getting, the studio's paying for it. You're showing up for it. So the goal for the people at home is, like you said, like, what does your consistency look like? How can you do it? And, you know, right, maybe a hack is to say 12 times a month versus 3 times a week. Okay, I missed it this week, but I need to make up, you know, coming up with your ways to find that consistency. And then the meal prep, you're right. I mean, a lot of these companies, there's so many now, and a lot of them are going to go out of business, and they're all tripping over themselves to give free delivery and discounts because they're want to be the last one that stands. Take advantage of that now while it's still going on, because that's not going to last forever. Dude, thank you so much for being on, Joey. This is awesome. I really enjoyed it. It was good chatting with you, bro. And good luck with everything moving forward. Let's keep in touch. Guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
See you, brother. See ya.
That's it for the Gamify Your Habits podcast with Will Moore. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to visit moremomentum.com to learn how you can gamify your life.